The game takes place on random maps. You go into New Game, then into Custom Game. This is the selection menu for 4 map scripts in the game in this release version, which I'll use to show you the game. Of course, later changes will still happen. Can you pick any of them? I suggest avoiding continents, since you'll start near AI neighbors, which can be tough for beginners. You can set the map size up here. On the left, a certain number of opponents will be suggested to match. You can add more players. All available factions are listed on the right. You can play with a random faction or one of the others that aren't listed down here. Duplicates can't play. If you've decided in your mind that you absolutely want to play as Rome, you first have to remove Rome from down here or set it to random. Then it will be available for selection at the top. Each of you has a bonus that's combined with each of these factions. However, you can also change it by simply assigning a different one to the AI opponent or yourself from the drop-down menu. On the left, you can set the difficulty levels. AI Expert is the average. Here, the AI, which is the artificial intelligence, controls the opponents at a slightly reduced level. At Master, the AI is a bit smarter and a bit more aggressive towards you and has slight advantages. Small bonuses exist in the game, but at Grandmaster they become much stronger, offering powerful starting and ongoing bonuses. Starting out, expert level is more than sufficient, and being below that is nothing to be ashamed of. And that's how Millennia starts, with a starting city that has already been placed for you, and usually 2 starting units, one in the city itself and one on the adjacent terrain. You can move the map with the left mouse button if you want. The units you can move have a certain number of movement points, which are shown here at the bottom of the unit. Be careful, this is an army. At the beginning, it can have up to 3 units that can be grouped together in this stack. With the right research, armies can later become larger. He moves a unit with a right click. You can move them bit by bit or all at once. A flat terrain tile and an unforested terrain tile usually only have 10 movement points. At the beginning, others have a bit more. The line of sight isn't limited by mountains or forests. It's always just one terrain tile, unless you have scouts or scout-like units that generate it. With them, you can see one terrain tile further. At the beginning, move around once and keep an eye out for any interesting stories. Then you can see here in the city itself, and around the city, of course, hex tiles and a citizen who is working in the city. Some of the terrain tiles have resources on them which are also marked by an icon. Rice is a resource that, if you have it, allows for special improvements, meaning certain terrain upgrades that wouldn't be possible otherwise. You could also gain a nice advantage down here. The improvement points are shown at the bottom left as a global pool. Improving terrain tiles doesn't happen through units that have to do it on site, but through you. You can do it yourself. I could either click down here, and then you have a selection of all the upgrades that have already been researched at the moment, or, which I find a bit more convenient, you click on the tile you're thinking about upgrading and look at the bottom right to see what's possible. For example, this early hunting camp costs 6 improvement points. Let's build it once. If you hover over it with the mouse, you'll notice the difference. A citizen working here in a normal bushland would generate 1 food, but up here with the appropriate improvement, it's much more, specifically 3 food and 2 wealth, so 2 gold. At the top is the city screen, on the left is the management of the citizens, who works where, and on the right is the management of the construction projects in the city. Let's check up here to see where the citizens are. Each citizen uses 2 food units per turn and has specific needs which are listed in front. The first 5 citizens only require food, but starting with the 6th citizen another need is added. Housing is needed from the 6th citizen onward. Citizens from the 11th person onward, housing and then hygiene are needed, with more needs to follow. Initially, just ensure enough food. Satisfaction can reach up to 200, it can't go higher. On the left you can see in the tooltip the amount of food currently being produced, and on the right the amount being consumed by the citizens in the city. Later, when there are even more needs, an average value of need satisfaction will be calculated, and that's what determines when the next citizen will move into the city. Here on the left you can see a corresponding display, a meter that fills up, and an indicator showing in how many turns this will happen. The citizen was automatically placed on the hunting camp by the program. You can use the plus and minus icons to send him somewhere else or bring him back. If you just click minus, does he go to the top left with the unemployed? Usually you've done well with that, here on the left. Placing them on the modernized terrain tiles. You closed it earlier so that it's colored red. The AI can no longer automatically relocate the citizen. You can only do that manually on the right side. Here is the construction overview. You can also click on the tab here on the left. That's how you learn. Up there are also the units that you can found or recruit at the start of the game. Grey stories are construction projects that are basically possible, but for example the dugout canoe here is not possible. Because we don't have a dock or a harbour yet where such boats could be built. The ones with the padlock have to be unlocked through research within this era, this age. The following buildings are already available in the city and marked with a green check mark. Homeland is basically the palace you have in the capital city. It gives you some good tips. Start yields here. These are the first 3 buildings you can construct and 2 more unlocked through research. Projects are shown at the bottom left. There you can set it so that you convert production into improvement points for a specific course later. You can unlock this through research. Can the ratio, the conversion rate also improve? Or you can even produce research points, money or other things from production. At the top you can view all resources produced in the city. Let's start by producing a scout, so you can run across the terrain and maybe discover bonus villages and uncover rewards or other nice things in them. Research is very important. At the bottom right you'll see a notification. You can also go directly into the research menu from here. There are 10 ages in the game. As a rule of thumb, you need to research any 3 technologies from the left side to unlock the next age. At the moment only 1 age is available. Later on you'll find yourself in situations where there are alternative ages as well. At the start I would generally recommend that you either go for scouting, then you'll have a second scout relatively early and can gain advantages on the map with it. Ride into bonus villages, find cool locations for more cities, discover city-states and much more. Additionally, you can only move into so-called deep forest terrain or jungle terrain, meaning terrain tiles that would otherwise still be blocked. For your unit, like the worker up front here, you can unlock a one-time chunk of improvement points. A key early upgrade, the clay pit is only buildable on grassland. When a citizen works on it, it takes 12 improvement points to place a clay pit. Each citizen produces 1 production and 1 improvement point per turn. On the right you can also see that converting production into improvement points would yield better results. This is a building that allows you to generate research. On the left you unlock various improvements that let you generate food, for example in a farm, or a building that gives you a free yield of food in every city, regardless of whether a citizen is working for it or not. On the left you can also see this culture meter and below it, domains. As a rule of thumb, if you click on something, a selection menu appears when this culture meter is full. In 4 turns that's going to happen. At the moment we're producing 2 culture per turn and one of these 2 actions will be available to us. Under Found City, you could found a city on a tile right next to our regional city. Cities like this one here are called the capital in the game, while the others are called regional cities. So your starting city is not technically the capital in the game. That's often confusing, but that's actually your homeland. Such a regional city is called the capital in the game. You can also build small suburbs called cities in the game, and with that you can slowly expand your territory. You can display the cultural borders and thus the number of tiles you can work by clicking down here on the bottom right. That looks a bit confusing. Every turn your city generates a certain number of influence points, which is the resource up here in the game. It's 4 per turn at the moment, and these influence points are distributed to the surrounding tiles at the start of each new turn. The rule is that the number of influence points per turn is divided among them. By the number of terrain tiles your region borders, you expand your cultural borders by placing another city next to it, or generally as the borders expand, the number of terrain tiles your region borders will probably also increase. And that means there are fewer influence points for each adjacent terrain tile. Each terrain tile has a threshold you must meet for it to belong to the nearest city. The threshold is displayed, and each round some influence points are transferred. The threshold is higher the more difficult the terrain is. At the beginning of the game, the following applies. Water, for example, will be hard to include, and forests and jungles are also very difficult, while grassland and bushland are a bit easier at the beginning. You can significantly influence the threshold you need to reach in the game through research or other bonuses that you unlock. And here we are in an advanced game state, on a different map in round 74 and in the Iron Age. On the right we see two cities, Rome and Naples. We also have a so-called vassal city in the game, which is the city of Franklin here from earlier. You can also see neutral cities here, city-states, and on the minimap you can see the cities of rival factions marked in color. On the right you can tab through various items. For example, here are the armies. Double-click to expand them or view each army individually. You can collapse things like this if it gets confusing. Let's first take a look at how things work with the cities and with culture. The rule of thumb is, the more cities you've fully integrated, meaning they really count as regions here, the harder it can get to produce culture and to fill this culture meta. Because the number of regions you manage directly gives you a penalty to your culture production per turn. And that's important because cities also generate some culture, either through buildings inside them or in other ways, maybe even through upgrades that are built there. However, you can slow that down by expanding too early and too quickly without maintaining proper balance. Culture is a very, very important resource in the game, as you can see here. The so-called culture powers, meaning the actions that become available when such a culture meter is filled, become diverse and very, very useful as the game progresses. A few examples: you can raise an army, recruit 2 units, and summon them to one of your regional capitals, or to one of these small towns, or to one of the outposts you've established with a pioneer. Another very popular option you can use are these eurekas here. Then you can get a big chunk of research as a one-time bonus by applying a culture power to it. Or a third thing that I highly recommend is this: absorbing outposts. Each region has what's called a region level. Rome, for example, has a region level of 4. The region level acts as a cap. You can see how many citizens can live in the city by hovering over the citizen count, for example 16 out of 20. That means, with region level 4 we have 5 citizen slots available per level in the city. 20 citizens can live here and 16 are currently there. The best way to increase the region level is to add another city. This here is a city in the game. The number of cities you can add per region to the actual regional capital is mainly determined by research. So, every few eras when you move into a new one, you're offered a research that lets you add another city. There are also other ways to increase the region level through certain other bonuses you can unlock, and the region level determines it. It also decides which buildings you can construct in the city. Let's open the build menu. The choices are a bit overwhelming. This is the capital city, and here many things are possible in the city. If this were a very small city with a low region level, it could happen that certain buildings aren't even offered to us yet because the level isn't high enough. The same applies here. The buildings that have already been constructed are marked with a check mark, and some of the buildings have a whole trail like that. So, like an upgrade trail. That means you build the base building and you can upgrade it later. The upgrade buildings are unlocked through research. Or in a fairly new city with a good level, you immediately build the highest upgrade building available. The green arrows show you that this is potentially an upgrade of an existing building. All units are listed here again as well. And it's getting pretty crowded here now. With all these terrain tiles, you can nicely puzzle things around and think about what you need and what you don't. Attention! If you have a citizen working on a terrain tile with a modernization, then not always but very often there is a split. There is a yield that modernizations always provide, even if no one is working there. For example, a so-called dwelling gives you 5 housing. Housing is the second of the needs that are unlocked in the city. Starting from the 6th citizen, you need 1 housing. However, if I were to send a citizen in here and assign them to work, we would only earn 1 additional gold. Garbage pit works similarly. Hygiene is provided just by its existence. The garbage pit gives 4 hygiene points, and a citizen working there gives 4 more. With other buildings like the hunting camp or plantation, it doesn't matter at all. You can see small items next to them. These are goods produced on site if a citizen works there. All goods produced here are also listed again on the right side. At first, all goods are produced as raw materials, but later you can convert them into finished goods. We've already done that. Look down here. For example, we have 2 clay that are produced here. If you want to take a look at this, we have 3 clay pits spread throughout the city. Each clay pit with a citizen in it produces 1 unit of clay, which gives 1 production point and 1 improvement point. For one of these clay pits, we have built a so-called kiln right here in front. It converts the clay into a stone, into a brick. Bricks are made on the right, and 1 clay deposit is grayed out. That means what this clay produces disappears, and instead, the things that this brick brings are created. That's the principle with the raw materials and processing buildings. Basically, the rule is that all these things are produced and consumed locally, meaning that the raw material building and the finished goods building have to be in the same city. You can unlock this later in the game via the Workers tab, that you can import goods from abroad. At the beginning, these are generic goods, so you're importing some kind of virtual trade goods. In the release version, this costs 8 gold and gives you 1 culture point each turn. Later, specific goods may also be offered from abroad, and an export button will be available here too. There you can send goods from one city, a domestic city, to another domestic city, and for example further process a raw material in another city. These possibilities gradually come into play. Then there are, in the game, we've already seen it, these city-states that you can encounter. That's one way you can come across new cities. Basically, how do you get new cities? Either you recruit a settler unit. If you want to click on the domains at the top, here are the domains listed: government, exploration, warfare, engineering, diplomacy, and arts. More will be added later. These are the guidelines. They work a bit similarly to culture. So, by clicking on such a domain, a possible action will be presented. If you were to perform one of these actions, points would be used and would be reset here accordingly. Some of these actions have a cooldown, so they can only be performed every 4 rounds or every 7 rounds, while others can be performed repeatedly. Some of them become more expensive in terms of the points that need to be invested. With each identical action he performs, others always have the same base yield. These points have a limit here in this era. As you can see in the tooltip, we can accumulate up to 200 points. Later the limit will keep increasing to 300, 400 and so on. If you want to take a look at the government with me, there's an option to create settlers there. Each new settler costs a few more government points when you click here. If you want to create a settler, you can then generate him in a city, in a capital, or in such a city, and 1 citizen point in the city will be used up in the process. You click on the settler and then move him to a free terrain tile where the settler can then build such a city. The first way to get a city, the second way to get a city is of course conquest. You move a unit over, an army over to an enemy, place it next to them and attack. Cities are tough to crack at first. You don't necessarily have to have siege units with you, but it would be helpful. Alternatively, you can also bring very strong melee units, so-called line units, which help to bombard a city wall first. Ranged and cavalry units, on the other hand, should only be used once the wall is already down. So, the second way to conquer a city and the third way to approach a city. You head out to such a city-state and get what's called an envoy through diplomacy. He's right up here. Click on him to create him in one of your cities. And when you go next to such a city-state, you can perform the action there, making them a vassal. That's the third way you can acquire a city. And all of these options ensure that, for example, here in front we have a vassal. I can show you this quite well here in Franklin. If you click on it here, you'll see that an integration meter up there gradually fills up. That's necessary for each of these actions: founding a city with a settler, city-state with an envoy, flipping or conquering a city. Every time you can't manage the city right away, instead there's an integration meter like this first. A bar that fills up round by round, usually with 1 point per round, sometimes a bit faster depending on the era, among other things. Once this is full, you'll need a certain number of government points afterwards. Here it's 38, so click the city to fully integrate it into your empire. A city you founded has a very short integration bar, so it completes quickly. A city that you get from a city-state as a vassal has a somewhat longer integration bar. A militarily conquered one has an especially long one. However, the cities you conquer often have the best loot. Also because sometimes they don't just consist of a capital city but already have small suburbs around them. They have many city buildings already constructed by the AI, which is also true for city-states, though to a lesser degree. In cities founded by settlers, you naturally lack any city buildings. At the beginning, be careful. When conquering a city, it's usually the number of points you have. Another important thing in the game, there are events. At the top, you see a meter for innovation and next to it a meter for chaos. When you conquer a foreign city, there's a chaos value, so you get a few chaos points. On the other hand, if you trigger such an event through culture, like advanced research, as you can see, you get something positive, namely a few blue innovation points up here. These points are automatically added up every round, which means the chaos value usually increases round by round. And the innovation points you get here are also added to your account every round after that. As soon as you reach a threshold of 100, either positive or negative, there is an increasing chance each round that a random event will occur, either a positive or a negative one. In both cases, you have the option to either receive money or spend money. During the chaos event, you may opt for either a negative or positive reward instead. For example, you can get an upgrade for your buildings or accept a negative effect during the chaos event, like the appearance of new rebel units. A few more important things about the topic of ages. A very central mechanic in the game. Here in the research section we can now see we're in the Age of Iron. So far 3 ages are available to choose from for the first faction in the game. You or another faction that enters an age that researches such an age will then be in that age themselves, and determines for all other civilizations which age they can still enter. So once a faction has reached the Age of Kings, for example, all others can only enter that age as well. Some of these ages are standard ages, you always enter them, like here the Age of Kings. The ones that have a silver border around them, a silver marking, these are positive ages that set special rules and special bonuses for everyone who is in that age. This represents chaos or a negative event, a dark age or age of plague. If you've met the triggers and requirements, and if someone researches the next age, then you can only choose the Age of Plague. So if a faction has met the requirements for it, then that faction can only get there. Unless another faction gets there first and, for example, unlocks the bonuses or the triggers for the Age of Monuments, they research it first. Then we are saved ourselves and don't have to go into the Age of Plague with everyone else, but into another one. So the first ones who have not only triggered an age, whoever triggers an age can only research that one. Whoever is the first to research a specific age determines for everyone else which age they will enter. And so there are many moments in the game where you make decisions for your civilization. This gives the game high replay value, as the story always offers new branches. On the one hand, these branches are created through the ages, as you can see here, and then ages are also created through the so-called national spirits. So there are 4 moments in the game, which are ages 2 entering 2, 4 and 6. And in 8 out of 10, where you have such a selection of ages, and you can then choose one and unlock certain bonuses for yourself. And 2 ages later, there's another selection where you can unlock more bonuses. With such a national spirit, you also keep it until the end of the game. You always have to unlock something from left to right using points. If you've accomplished something in a column, you can unlock the cooler things on the right side and keep progressing further to the right. And that way, up to 4 national spirits will gradually be displayed on the left. And that also gives you different ways to shape your game each time. The third way to write alternative history is through different forms of government. You can find them here directly under governments. Right now, for example, we're in the Imperial Dynasty, where we had different options to choose from. Bonuses you receive here, such as from a government form, they disappear later on compared to national spirits. When you choose a new government, the bonuses from the previous government usually expire, and new bonuses from the new government are unlocked. In addition to cities, the game includes external bonuses. You can create them with pioneers. Click on engineering on the left, then click on create pioneer. Then he would, and then on any city, a pioneer would spawn there. Attention! Each new pioneer costs more engineering points than the previous one. Then you move him to a terrain tile like this one. Here you simply give the command to build an outpost, and afterwards the outpost will be there. You can disband it anytime by clicking Convert Back to Pioneer. And just like that, the unit is back and ready to leave again. Founding outposts mainly has the side effect that roads are created in the process. Roads are not built manually, but are automatically constructed next to nearby cities or between nearby cities and outposts. Zack, the outpost, is back. You can connect outposts, as you can see at the bottom right, by changing linked regions with a city you own. This serves the following purpose. The game also has resources you can connect by building an extra trading post. It's expensive to build, but it would send the goods produced here over to the next city. This way you can obtain rare or valuable resources on the map. Attention! The outposts do not defend themselves, so they can be destroyed very easily. However, you also have the option later in the game to convert outposts, for example, into bridges or other things. They then have basic defense buildings, and other terrain modifications around the outpost become possible. You can build compartments or whatever. Another thing in the game regarding upgrades, these small suburbs here are called cities in the game, like here. You can also upgrade and level them using engineer points. Clicking Expand City and selecting a city increases its level from 1 to 2 and so on. Once a city reaches level 2, you can assign it a special specialization. This is an example of a level 2 city. You can choose from different specializations. For instance, a farming city boosts food yields in nearby fields, farms and plantations. The higher the level, the greater the extra yields that are generated on this city tile. And the higher the gold yields that are also generated here in this city for every improvement that is built around it. One more important note about defense, because at some point enemies will cross your borders. Your capitals will be defended. On the one hand, fully automatically by militias that are inside, and also additionally by an army that you can station inside. If you hover over the city tile, you'll see it there in the 5th or 6th line. City Militia Roman 3×4, that means we're currently in the 3rd era, and there's a level 3 City Militia station there, and that's 4 times. The higher the era you're currently in, the better the City Militia units are. You don't see them in the game, and they can't be taken out of the city, but they automatically defend the capital if the city is attacked. The number of city militias that are created inside also depends on how many cities are around and what level they are. So a city like this one, for example, also provides a number of city militias, and these city militias are available here to defend the city at the same time. At the same time, they are also available in the regional capital to defend it. If an approaching enemy were to destroy this city here, then there would be a few fewer city militias available inside here afterwards. And the same applies here. The higher the level of this city, the more city militias will be made available here. This is a level 2 city, so there are a few more. If you go on the attack yourself and you can't handle it, when you're slaughtering an enemy capital, just wipe out the surrounding cities. They're defended less well. Then you'll get in here better and more easily. But don't be surprised if the loot you get afterwards is a bit less lucrative and rich, because here it is. First, the city is gone and nearby terrain improvements are plundered for now. You can rebuild them later. Partly, but it takes time and it's not very pleasant. Especially for those affected who lived and worked there and might end up cursing you. And then there's the topic of diplomacy in the top right. By clicking on the flag icon, you'll enter the diplomacy screen. All factions that are in this game are represented and you yourself can be seen in the top left. You can see how many regions they have connected and what their diplomatic status is towards you. For example, if we click on India, you first see a point rating of the general question, who is how powerful? 3 turns ago we took an action against them. Actions have a cooldown, so here we can only take another action in 3 turns. If we click on Brazil, for example, it's already been 5 turns since we took an action. That's the duration of the cooldown. Now, based on the current diplomatic relationship we have, we can propose certain actions. With the Brazilians, we currently have the closing day window, which goes back 1 level. Open borders. There are 5 diplomatic status positions or levels that you can be on. The basic thing is just standard, then there's 1 level better, which is open borders. 1 level above that is alliance, from standard downwards. Standard means neutrality. 1 level below means hostilities, allowing attacks on neutral ground without starting a war. Just below that is war, which means open hostility. From bottom to top, war, hostility, neutrality, open borders, alliances. You can't jump directly from one distant status to another. You can't go straight from alliance to open war or back. Wars require proper preparation. Attention! If you have an alliance with someone, you are automatically at war with everyone that faction is also at war with, and vice versa. Since the AI opponents here are very nervous characters and start and end wars very quickly and repeatedly, I would think carefully about whom you form an alliance with or not. You can go into open areas, into neighboring cities of foreign empires, and you can position merchants there. They have deployed a merchant. We generate him through diplomacy by clicking on merchant. Then we move him over here, place him next to a city, and then the merchant is there. After he clicks an action button, he generates a certain number of wealth points each round. The more populated the city is, the more you get out of it. You can also create envoys in a similar way and send them over. For that you just need to be standing next to any city. The envoy is not placed in the city itself, but rather in the realm. Then you'll have access to advanced diplomatic actions and certain extra treaties, for example. But also actions like, for example, demanding that they adopt my religion or demanding that they pay me money. Does an AI opponent or neighbor reject you? Such a faction might possibly declare war immediately, even if you otherwise get along quite well. I haven't explained everything to you. There's still a lot more to discover. The game is very complex, has a huge scope, and there's a lot of late game content to discover as well. If you want to watch over my shoulder as I play the game myself, sometimes on very high difficulty levels, and try to get the most out of the game features, there are many videos from me. The Millennia playlist is shown in the corner. Also, there's a discount promotion from me around the release. What is the name of the redeemable code and the links it works through? And all further information is below here in the text description on YouTube, and maybe you'll even find more tutorial videos from me on the channel. Have fun playing yourself.